Hey, what's going on, RotoBallers? Welcome to Week 13, talking the waiver wire tonight, and we are going to be talking about some of the hot names that we need to be taking a look at, either for waiver priorities or fab dollars, whatever it may be. Going to be going through a lot of those guys tonight. I'm Kyle Richardson, Senior Fantasy Analyst at RotoBaller.com. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at KRich1532. You can follow RotoBaller on Twitter at RotoBaller. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Hit the like button. If you have any questions, make sure you comment with those as well. And we'll make sure that we get to as many as possible. Playoffs are coming up quick. We need to make sure that we're making some correct calls this week, and there's going to be a couple of calls that owners need to make who have some star players who might not be seeing the field for a while, or at least one guy who won't see the field at all next week. Depending on how his suspension turns out. But we got to talk about Leonard Fournette, and we have to talk about the Jacksonville backfield right away. Because what are we doing with Carlos Hyde this week? More than likely, if you're in a redraft league, you've dropped Carlos Hyde. And if you've dropped Carlos Hyde, he now has a decent matchup against the Indianapolis Colts next week with what looks like a one-game suspension for Leonard Fournette, who decided to get into a little bit of a brawl in the game against Buffalo this past weekend. So what are we doing with Carlos Hyde? Do we want to run out and grab him? Is he worth a top priority waiver ad? Well, if you're a Leonard Fournette owner, 100%. If you own Leonard Fournette and you have fab money left, or you have any type of high waiver priority, you use it on Carlos Hyde and you get him this week. He's going to be the guy who's going to fill in again. Excuse me. So just like when Fournette was still coming back from his injury and they traded for Hyde, he's going to be the guy again. And he's got a decent matchup. The Colts did not do a good job of stopping the run last week against the Miami Dolphins. Kenyon Drake was able to get into the end zone a couple of times, one for a pass, one for a run. But they were able to run on the Indianapolis defense a little bit, which surprised me because the defense had seemed to be getting better and better each week. So now we have an opportunity for Carlos Hyde to jump in and really offer what could be solid running back to upside this week. So if you need some running back help, if you're a Melvin Gordon owner and you are losing Melvin Gordon and you need some help this week, Carlos Hyde is a definite ad. If you're a Leonard Fournette owner and you need help this week, Carlos Hyde is a definite ad. You want to make sure that you get him as quickly as possible. Put in your waiver bids right away. Hopefully, if you're going to get him, more than likely you're going to need that top spot. I would imagine that most owners will be taking a shot at him. So he's the big one. He's the big one this week. Another one, too, at running back to talk about real quick. Nyheim Hines needs to be brought up again. He's 22% owned right now, but there is an issue with Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack leaving the game early last weekend with a concussion. He's going to have to clear protocol and get ready to play this week. Now, I do not love that matchup. I don't love that matchup. And if I were you, I would check out the running back start sit video that we have this week, because I'm going to be bringing up the Indianapolis running backs a little bit more in depth and talking about my thoughts on them this week. So make sure you tune into that. But if you're a Marlon Mack owner and if you are missing out on a Carlos Hyde and you need a PPR option for a flex play, Nyheim Hines could be a guy that could help you out this week. They're going to be playing Jacksonville, and it is a tough defense to run on. I don't expect Nyheim Hines to get a ton of work on the ground that makes his value high, but if he can get enough work in the passing game, if he can get 4 or 5, maybe 6 catches, if he can break off some decent yards after the catch, maybe even find the end zone once. He has gotten some goal line work this year. If he can do any of those things, there's a possibility that he can return some decent value for you this week, especially if you're in a situation where you need somebody desperately. So Nyheim Hines is another running back that we need to keep our eye on as well. Jordan Wilkins, kind of go with that as well. Jordan Wilkins is only 4% owned, but he is not a guy that I'm going to take a shot at. So just to kind of answer that question between those two, Nyheim Hines or Jordan Wilkins is not a guy that I will spend any kind of waiver priority on this week. They're going to use him more in traditional run game. He's not going to see a whole lot of catches. He's going to be the guy running the football. But again, Jacksonville, a really good team. And check out the running back start sit video. I'll talk more in depth about what I expect from the Indianapolis running backs this week. Justin Jackson. So let's talk about Justin Jackson real quick too. Is he a guy that we want to try and add? Melvin Gordon, obviously, the bad news coming out that he could miss several weeks with an MCL sprain. And I even put it on Twitter this morning because all day yesterday I saw a lot of fantasy analysts on Twitter who basically said, imagine telling people to sit Melvin Gordon. And I was one of those guys. And did Melvin Gordon help you out right away? He did help you out right away. But the carelessness of Melvin Gordon, because I'm also holding him at fault, and the Chargers for the way they used him, is going to cost fantasy owners several weeks. So Justin Jackson, what's going to happen with that? Justin Jackson, is he going to be a guy that can help out? I don't trust Austin Eckler to just handle this entire workload on his own. He's done well with Melvin Gordon, but he has not done well on his own. He did fill in well last week, though. He did a good job of hanging in there last week. But I am not interested in spending too much of a high waiver priority on Justin Jackson. But he is a guy that you should take a look at in deeper leagues. So if you are in a deeper league, and you need some help at running back, then maybe take a look at him as well, especially if you are an Eckler owner, because if Austin Eckler were to face any kind of an injury, then you need to make sure that you cover yourself there as well. And we want to make sure, especially this time of the year when injuries can be an issue, if you're a David Johnson owner and you're heading towards the playoffs, if you're a David Johnson owner and you're heading towards the playoffs, then, maybe a guy like Chase Edmonds is someone you hold on to. If you are a Connor owner and you are headed towards the playoffs, then you grab a guy like Jalen Samuels. At this point of the year, I'm not too worried about handcuffing. I don't love handcuffing throughout the entire season. I'd rather own like a PPR back that has his own upside. But at this point of the year, when things get to be a little bit nitty-gritty and you're in the playoffs and you need to make sure that you have guys that are going to help you right away, owning handcuffs is not a bad option. So I would go that route 100%. So keep an eye on those as well. Let's take a look here. Gonna grab some questions rolling in over here on YouTube. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Again, the Waiver Wire show, we do broadcast it live, but it will drop as a video after this. So however you're watching, make sure you comment and throw your questions out to us. STG 121, I took Eckler because I assumed Gordon wouldn't start. Well, that is good that you had him. And it was a situation where you could probably start both of them too. Just going to take a look here real quick. Someone wants to know, Tyler Horry wants to know Adam Humphries, Kiki QT, or Bruce Ellington, and we're going to get into those wide receivers a little bit more here real quick. For a while now, it's been Kiki QT for me, but I love Adam Humphries, and we're going to talk about him here in just a second as well. Somebody asking if you should grab Josh Adams. Yes, 100%. If Josh Adams is still out there, make the move now. Go ahead and grab him. Let's jump back over here to some of these. TJ SHU9, Jack Doyle going on the IR, learning that today you need a replacement. A guy that I continue to beat the drum for at tight end, we'll jump into wide receivers here in a second, but a guy that I continue to beat the drum for a tight end is Chris Herndon from the New York Jets. He continues to be a favorite target not only for Sam Darnold before he went down, but for Josh McCown as well. So for both guys, he's been a target for them and has actually had some decent fantasy value as well. So Chris Herndon, a guy that's only 8% owned if you were relying on Jack Doyle. Chris Herndon is my pick. If I had to spend a waiver priority on somebody, a tight end, which is getting pretty thin at this time of the year, Chris Herndon is the number one tight end that I would want to make a shot at this week. So let's jump into some of these wide receivers here real quick. And if you are new to the show, just keep in mind I do write the wide receiver waiver wire article for RotoBaller every single week. It drops on Monday mornings at 8 a.m. for you to check out right away. So always be able to check that out if you can, Monday mornings or Monday evenings whenever you have the opportunity. I break it down in this show a little bit as well because we got to keep the YouTube viewers happy. I want to make sure that you guys are getting all the best information. I mentioned it a second ago, Adam Humphries. He's been, in my article, I've had him as a dark horse a couple of times, but I really didn't bite on him being a guy that you have to own. I'm doing that now. So Adam Humphries actually made it into my front runners part of the article this week. We need to move him to the top because of his connection with Jameis Winston at this point. It is real, and it's not going anywhere. Over his last 4 games, Humphries has 4 touchdowns to go with 249 yards on 24 receptions. And honestly, even though we spent all offseason talking about Chris Godwin, and Chris Godwin seemed hot to start the season, Adam Humphries is the wide receiver 2 in Tampa Bay, a team that throws the ball quite often. He has value the rest of the season. Not only that, but he gets the Carolina Panthers coming up next week, who he just burned 3 weeks ago for 82 yards on 8 catches and 2 touchdowns. So he's getting a team that he put up some fantastic numbers against not too long ago. Make sure that if you have a waiver priority and you need wide receiver help, Adam Humphries is my number 1 wide receiver pickup this week. So anybody out there asking questions about Adam Humphries, that is the guy to get. PS23 asking Humphries or Reynolds. It is Humphries for me 100%. Tight end talk, please, from Manny. Just mentioned it. Chris Herndon is my number 1 waiver ad for tight ends this week. So if you need help at tight end, Chris Herndon is the guy. Somebody's talking about LeGarrette Blount. We'll go back to running backs here in a minute. We'll talk a little bit more about LeGarrette Blount, but I'm not nearly as intrigued as LeGarrette Blount by somebody else. So I'm not going with LeGarrette Blount this week. Let's get back to wide receivers here, though, real quick. Another guy, Dante Pettis, which also make sure you check out the wide receiver start-sit video as well, because I'm going to be talking about him more in depth. But Dante Pettis is also a guy that I want to grab off the waiver wires this week, and he's probably available in more than a majority of leagues at this point. Only 1% owned. Marquise Goodwin missed week 12 with a serious family issue. Don't know for sure what's going on, but if he ends up missing any more time because of Pierre Garçon continually dealing with injuries, Dante Pettis has the opportunity to be the wide receiver 1 in San Francisco right now. He probably created a little bit of chemistry last week with Mullins. He did have 4 catches for 77 yards, and the one thing that I liked is that his touchdown was in the red zone. He kind of dispels the fact that he's not just a big play wide receiver. He's a guy that can run some crisp routes and get in the end zone, especially when you're in the red zone. He did that. He made a nice move on the inside, cut to the middle, was able to catch the ball and go into the end zone untouched. So I really like Dante Pettis as another guy to add for wide receivers this week. And then David Moore from Seattle. He really needs more of our attention at this point. David Moore, when I wrote about him earlier in some of the waiver wire articles that I had, to me, he was just a touchdown upside play every single week. He wasn't a guy that I was going to try and grab right away because I just didn't feel like the volume was there. And that was an issue for me. But we've kind of gotten past that now. A season high 104 receiving yards on 4 catches this past week, and a crucial touchdown on 4th down to tie the game against the Panthers. It was a big play that he made, and those are the types of plays that really help form a connection with your quarterback and really get your quarterback to say, you know what? David Moore is a guy that I need to go to. Russell Wilson saying David Moore is a guy that I need to go to more often. He's a guy that I trust. It builds that trust. And to see those big plays with a guy like David Moore, we could see more of that upside moving forward where he isn't just a touchdown play every week. He is a guy that will also offer some volume as well. Doug Baldwin, he is still banged up. So as long as Doug Baldwin is banged up, David Moore continues to offer that. Now, he does get, Moore gets a nice matchup next week against San Francisco, so we could see another good game next week against San Francisco. Long haul, though, he gets the Vikings in week 14 for what will be probably a majority of people's first week for the fantasy playoffs. So he's not a guy that I'm going to grab and really rely on for the playoffs, but if he's a guy that you need to get through next week, that matchup is far too juicy to just forget about and move on from. Bruce Ellington. Let's talk Bruce Ellington here real quick because he's a sneaky play, a sneakily play, as we like to say here on the Roto Revolution. Bruce Ellington since he joined the Lions the last 2 weeks, 6 targets or 6 catches in both of those games. 6 catches in each game since he's joined the Lions so far. And he's playing an important role in the slot, a really important role that is vacated by the trade of Golden Tate. Golden Tate being one of Matthew Stafford's favorite receivers. Not only that, but we find out today that Marvin Jones is going on the IR. So now it's Kenny Golladay and Bruce Ellington as your main options at wide receiver for the Lions. Theo Riddick continues to play a role as a PPR running back, but the main guy outside of Golladay, to me, is going to be Bruce Ellington. I think he's going to be the second most targeted player on that team, and they get the Rams this coming week. Kenny Golladay, again, the wide receiver start-sit video. Make sure you check that out. I'm going to talk about Kenny Golladay a little bit more, but Bruce Ellington gets to face a Rams team that over the last 4 weeks has given up more fantasy points to wide receivers per game than any other team. And not only that, but the game script is going to be as negative as it can possibly get, because let me tell you, there's no way the Lions are going to hang with the Rams this coming week. So because of that, in PPR leagues, I think Bruce Ellington carries a lot of value headed into week 13. So another PPR option if you're in a deeper league, if you're dealing with injuries of any kind, Bruce Ellington is, again, as we say on this show, a sneakily play this week. So keep an eye on him as well. And I have to mention Antonio Callaway, right? You guys, if you're a fan of the show, you know my love of Antonio Callaway. I am the main number one Antonio Callaway truther. I drive that truther bus. A lot of people hopped off of it, and I said, understandably so. Been very inconsistent. But that offense is clicking now in Cleveland, and it's getting much better. And I think the one thing that we need to remember about Antonio Callaway is that he was suspended all last year. He didn't play last year in college football. So basically, he's coming into the NFL for his first year, his rookie season, after taking an entire year off before and trying to regain that form. And some wide receivers, not only do they take time to acclimate to the climate and develop some skills and become a good wide receiver, but those are guys that are coming off top-end performances the year before as well. So I think it says a lot to Antonio Callaway and his skill set and how good of a player he is and can be, that he is still continuing to perform. And this week, 4 receptions for 62 yards and a touchdown. And it seems like every week the Browns continue to get better and better. Baker Mayfield is the real deal. And let me tell you, he was my quarterback one in the draft. Love this guy long term. He's already showing up. But Jarvis Landry has basically disappeared. So instead of where in the world is Carmen Sandiego, it's where in the world is Jarvis Landry, because I don't know where he's at. And because of that, Antonio Callaway has a real shot to become more of a go-to guy for Baker Mayfield. They're developing a connection. They got to work together in rookie camp. They got to develop that chemistry a little bit more, a little bit quicker than maybe what Jarvis Landry did, because Jarvis Landry was maybe working with those first team reps with Tyrod Taylor at the beginning of the season, and those second team reps where Antonio Callaway was a part of to start, he got to work with Baker Mayfield a little bit more. So there might be a little bit more of a connection there right now. We'll see what happens over the coming weeks, but Antonio Callaway, again, a guy that I loved coming into the season. I think dynasty-wise, he has got top end wide receiver 2 talent written all over him. I know that might be crazy to say, but outside of DJ Moore, he was, in my perspective, the most talented wide receiver in this draft last year. So the sky's the limit for him and that offense. Hopefully it continues to develop. Scott says, Kyle, you could cover 2 TDs against the Bengals. They couldn't cover a bed with a blanket. That's okay. I would take those 2 touchdowns as well, although probably I am not playing from the wide receiver position. It might be tight end more than anything, but it doesn't matter. He's still jumped out there and had a really good game, and they continue to roll. So he's still a guy that I am keeping an eye on. Let's see here. Couple of other questions. I got a question coming up here real quick about Curtis Samuel. Big Mike 345 wants to know about Curtis Samuel. Big Mike, excellent question, because he's in my article. I just hadn't gotten to him yet. He's a dark horse for me. The reason he's only a dark horse and not like a must add right now, because at this point he's a little bit more of a gimmick type player for me right now. He's a guy that can line up in the slot, maybe outside, come into the backfield, maybe line up next to Christian McCaffrey. They can do a lot of different things with him, which is good for fantasy value, but it can be a little bit more difficult in terms of getting a guy solid playing time, getting him in a groove, things like that. So with Curtis Samuel, he is still a guy that I'm keeping an eye on, though, because in the fantasy world, we want as much upside as possible, and he's a guy that offers that. He's a playmaker. And we see his role taking shape in this offense right now. He has 4 total touchdowns over his last 4 games. So anytime you plug him in is a flex play. There's a chance that he scores. That's at least 6 points right there. Hopefully you can come up with a little bit more volume though, because if he's only getting 1 or 2 catches for a touchdown, that's a little bit more of a difficult play for me, and that's why I don't have him listed higher, because I just don't see a lot of that happening. And I also want to know more about Devin Funchess. What's going to happen with him? Is he going to be back soon? Is he not going to be back soon? What's going to go on with Devin Funchess? With all of that being said, if Devin Funchess continues to be out, Curtis Samuel can continue, to develop a larger and larger role within this offense and move forward with that. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks. He might not be a guy that I jump to add this week, especially if I need help right away, but he is a guy that I am keeping an eye on for the fantasy playoffs, potentially. Let's see here real quick. Will Jack Mother Doyle, as we like to call him on this show, glad you grabbed Ebron a couple of weeks. Yes, absolutely. If you have him, he's good. He is good. Landry, yep, Jake, we're going to talk about Landry tonight a lot, so don't worry about that. Jared Cook, if Jared Cook over Trey Burton, I thought you were asking if you'd pick up Jared Cook. I'm like, he should be picked up already. He should be owned. Here's one. Gulf Coast Yakin wants to know, Kerryon Johnson was dropped in my league last week, leaving. He has the number 3 waiver claim. Should I waste it on him? Yes. Let me grab all that Kerryon Johnson. He'll be back. He will be back. It might not be this week, but at some point he will be back. And if you can grab him at the number 3 waiver priority and stash him, I'm okay with that. I am good with that, 100%. Another question. So someone brought up AJ Green killing his fantasy team, PS23. Well, I don't know what's going to happen with AJ Green. There is a real possibility, especially with Andy Dalton going on IR and being done for the season today. There's a real possibility that the Bengals just move AJ Green there as well, and just say, look, we don't have a chance to win this year, and we're going to go ahead and put him on IR. We don't want to get him hurt. We're going to look and focus towards next year. If that's the case, let's talk a little bit of John Ross. So do we want to invest in John Ross if AJ Green is out the rest of the year? John Ross has been a touchdown dependent play so far, but it could be good for him to be connecting with a different quarterback. I don't trust the quarterback situation in Cincinnati, so that is something that concerns me. But again, John Ross is one of those guys who only needs 1 or 2 big plays a week to really return that value. So keep an eye on John Ross and see what happens with AJ Green. If AJ Green end up being done for the year, then John Ross is another person that I want to take a look at. Mr. Delaney 33 wants to know what's going on with James White. We're going to talk about that later. Rex Burkhead is officially activated at this point, can play this week. Should you pick up Rex Burkhead in your league? Probably not yet. I wouldn't pick up Rex Burkhead this week. Let's see what kind of a role he has going forward. I don't expect it's going to be too much. I don't think Rex Burkhead has enough of a role to actually make himself fantasy relevant, but he has a big enough role to give us fantasy headaches for James White and Sony Michel the rest of the season. So we will want to keep an eye on that. Someone's asking about starting Gus over Coleman Carson. You will have to check out the running back start sit show for that. Please do. If we can get a like on this video, if you're watching right now, we can get a like, would really appreciate it. Going to talk a couple of quarterbacks here real quick. So let's talk some quarterbacks for those of you that may have lost Andy Dalton this week or need some streaming options. Lamar Jackson is the guy that I'm going to continue to stream. Joe Flacco at this point, what's going to happen? Well, even if he gets back at some point, is he going to get his job back? Lamar Jackson hasn't been great in the passing game. 2 interceptions this past week, only one touchdown. But here's the thing. He made some beautiful plays. He's got the arm to play. He just needs to develop a little bit more as an NFL quarterback in this system. He needs to develop a little bit more. A lot of people are talking about firing John Harbaugh. I wouldn't do that. You have Lamar Jackson who needs to learn and stay in a system. keep it the same for him right now. Don't go out there and create a whole new staff, bring in a whole new playbook, and really take down what Lamar Jackson has learned so far this season. Let him build. If next season they can't get to the playoffs and do something special, then maybe at that point take a look at it. But you need Lamar Jackson to have a little continuity. That's more of a dynasty thing, not redraft. But Lamar Jackson offers enough upside with his arm and his feet that you can play him every single week. And then another one too, my guy Dak Prescott, only 47% owned. I took a lot of heat this preseason because I said he was a must-own quarterback because I thought he was a quarterback one. The start of the season wasn't great for him, but believe it or not, Dak Prescott is up to quarterback 14 right now. So he is hanging in there. He's almost back to quarterback one status. He was the quarterback one for fantasy purposes last week. Had an excellent game. He has a very friendly schedule to end the season. Dak Prescott is a guy that if you need a quarterback, he's your guy. I'm 100% investing in him. I would start him every week with no issues. The running game is clicking right now. He's developed a real rapport with Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper has done wonders for that offense. This is an offense that I am buying into the rest of the season, and Dak Prescott leading that as the quarterback is the guy that I am absolutely 100% buying. So he is my quarterback to buy. Again, Lamar Jackson as well is a guy that I am keeping an eye on. Jameis Winston, believe it or not, is still under 50% owned at 47% owned. I would actually place him, even though he probably has the most upside of these two quarterbacks because of how much they're going to throw the ball, I'm actually placing him below them in terms of picking up because, as I talked about this past week on the Sunday show, he could be one half away from having the best fantasy week of any quarterback or being on the bench again. Who knows what they're going to do with that situation? I would expect that they're going to just let Jameis Winston play the rest of the year, but they have mishandled that quarterback situation to such an awful extent this year that you just don't know what's going to happen. And that's why I don't want to invest in Jameis Winston the rest of the year because I don't want to take any issues. I don't want to take any issues with that team because it is a good offense, but I don't want to take a chance having him find the bench again and being in the playoffs and being like, now I got to work the waiver wire. Now I got to stream in the playoffs. I don't want to do that. I want to set my quarterback position up heading into that. M. Leal wants to know tight ends, who to pick up. Reed, Graham, Burton, Cajun? I don't know who that is. Is it supposed to be Njoku? And Reed. Reed is my guy there. Reed is my guy. PS23 wants to know, hey Kyle, Cam is my only QB. Worried about the Saints matchups. Yeah, that could be a tough one, but you have to remember too, the Saints are playing so well right now on offense that it could lead to more volume for Cam Newton. Picking up Cousins and stash him for Detroit and Miami, yeah, if Cousins is on your waiver wire, I don't really condone carrying two quarterbacks, but if we're heading into the playoffs and you do have a spot for him, then yeah, why not? Daniel Boston asking about Peyton Barber. He's not a guy that I'm picking up right now, especially this coming week. And again, check out the running back start sit video, and I will talk a little bit more about that as well. Joe Camel brings up a great point. Geno Smith is hot right now. I've seen his availability go down over the coming weeks, and I don't have it available to me right now. I'd have to look it up. But here's the thing. Herndon has been a little bit more consistent longer than what Geno Smith has. Now, that rapport with Marcus Mariota is getting better. If you're looking for upside, I think it is Smith, though. Smith will carry the upside, but I think Herndon's a little bit of a safer play. And me, personally, I like to be a little bit safer with my tight ends. I like to know what I'm getting on a weekly basis instead of waiting for that ceiling every single week. So it depends on what you're looking for on your team, too. But that's a good point. That is a good point. Ross is saying that he's never going to doubt me again. Why, Ross? What did I do? Did I do something good? Maybe. I don't know. So, you sat Amari. That's why, Ross. You don't hashtag always Amari, my man. Adam, you did set Gordon. That wasn't. I still stand by that call. I still stand by the sitting Gordon call, but that's another debate for another time. We're going to go ahead and wrap up the wide receiver show. Got to get going to record the running back and wide receiver shows as well. So talking waiver wires tonight. Thank you for tuning in. If you watch the live stream, if you're catching this after the live stream has ended though, make sure that you comment below with your questions, and one of our excellent RotoBaller writers or myself will be in touch to answer your questions and help get you ready for week 13. good luck to everyone if we don't see you before then. But again, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, all of the start-sit videos that you need to see are going to be dropping here over the next couple of days. And of course, every Sunday, RotoBaller Game Day from 12 to 1 with Jake and myself. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at krich1532. Make sure you're following RotoBaller at RotoBaller. Make sure you subscribe to Jake's channel as well. Jake, again, will be in the next couple of episodes with me, the Fantasy Headliners. So make sure you're keeping in touch with him too. Appreciate everyone tuning in tonight or watching, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Roto Revolution. Have a great one, everyone. Thanks.